want to know what led up to that. And one of the things that you could talk about with Jim Acosta was the fact that he is, as everyone knows, on CNN, he is really just infused with that Trump derangement syndrome. So one of the things that I've noticed is that we are rapidly approaching the same scenario that we saw in not only Trump term number 1, but also the last 4 years under Joe Biden. The constant hand-wringing and ignoring of real news in favor of the constant hair-on-fire approach of the media that is going on right now. Joan, we talked about it yesterday.
Yeah.
Where they're all talking about, this supposed Hitler wave that Elon Musk supposedly did, which he didn't, and we talked about that. But I want you to think about all of the news that we here on Nashville's Morning News have been covering in the last couple of weeks. I mean, we talked about the California wildfires. We, of course, talked about the executive orders on illegal immigration, the firing of DEI with Donald Trump, sending D.C. workers back to the office, that $500 billion investment in artificial intelligence, reports of Donald Trump getting after Russia to end the war in Ukraine. We've got that story for you as well. Treating drug cartels as terrorist organizations and releasing once classified documents on assassinations. It goes on and on. All the things that we talk about here on Nashville's Morning News and Talk Radio. This interview on CNN, over 9 minutes, with Jim Acosta and Tim Burchett. You know what the topic was?
What?
The pardoning of the J6ers.
Oh,
do you defend what Donald Trump did, releasing these people from prison, pardoning them, commuting their sentences? Yes or no?
9 minutes. 9 minutes. This badgering with Jim Acosta and Tim Burchett. And Burchett, he's trying to answer the question because it is a nuanced answer.
I was the last person to leave the Capitol grounds, the floor of the Capitol, last member of Congress on January 6th when all this went down. I was offended as anybody. If they crossed those barriers, they were breaking the law. But you got to realize, too, they're charged under federal law. Many of them never even saw their day in court and were sitting in a jail cell. So the whole thing is bad news. But you also...
I asked you a yes or no question. Do you agree with President Trump's decision to pardon these violent people and releasing them from jail?
I am so damn tired of the yes or no questions.
Yeah.
You notice that's what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
So this whole thing was very contentious, and Acosta, again, trying to get Burchett to answer this yes or no question. Congressman, it's a yes or no question. It's really not. It is all about context. It is all about a bigger discussion. Now, they can play, big boy britches news anchor all they want with Jim Acosta, but the reality is that there's a lot to this discussion. Now, part of what CNN is trying to do is they're trying to lump everyone together. All 1,500 plus, they all participated in different ways on January 6th. But as usual, there is a lacking of context, a lacking of fairness in the questions of Jim Acosta, and Tim Burchett is trying to give a more thoughtful answer than Acosta is willing to hear. I mean, he just won't stop.
If they were truly violent, no. But do I know that they were? I don't know that.
What do you mean you don't know that? We're showing the footage on the air right now. Congressman, you were there that day. There are offenders on January 6th who violently beat police officers. There are offenders who are convicted of seditious conspiracy. That is the truth.
This is a political world, Jim, and I don't remember you all on CNN condemning Joe Biden for commuting the sentences of murderers and child molesters, which he did, and you all
Congressman, I'm not asking about that. Congressman, we talked about Joe Biden's pardons.
You never do,
Congressman,
Jim.
we did talk about it. We talked about Joe Biden's pardons.
Oh, Jim, you did not. You all read your report from the Democrat National Committee, as you always do.
That is absolutely false.
As I said, he is a Tennessee treasure. Now, just so you understand some of what's going on here, remember what I talked about yesterday. You have the whole discussion of pardons. Biden has shipped off some of these 9/11 terrorists, these hijackers, to Oman, where they'll live a life of heroes as he tries to empty Gitmo, the 9/11 masterminds. They won't be getting the death penalty. Joe Biden has taken the death penalty off the table for gangbanger murderers. He pardoned his own family, of course. We all know that. And a good reason why the Democrats lost is because crime has been rampant. And so you've got the congressman, and he's trying to sort of put this in a larger context and point out the hypocrisy of CNN and Jim Acosta and the media at large. Because I believe that is part of the conversation. They can try to, pin him into this yes or no answer, Congressman, but the reality is that it is not a yes or no answer. It simply is not. And I love how Burchett is he's turning the tables on Jim Acosta, because I would have loved for Burchett to ask the questions from Jim Acosta, which is yes or no. Do you agree with Joe Biden taking the death penalty off the table for the 9/11 hijackers, the masterminds of 9/11, or maybe the gangbanger murderers from, Tren de Aragua and MS-13? Because that is exactly what Joe Biden did. So it's more than just about J6. It's more than just about yes or no, Congressman. It is a lot more. But wait till you hear this statement made by Jim Acosta, where he actually asks the question, should Donald Trump be held accountable if one of these J6ers who has been pardoned and released commits another crime? Wait till you hear what Tim Burchett has to say. It is 5:15. Time to check the roads on WTN.
We are hearing from a super texter this morning that says there is an accident. That accident is on, let me see if I can get back to where it is, 24 this morning westbound near Antioch. So that may be a place to avoid this morning, or perhaps expect some slowdown. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I think the car crash was on CNN yesterday afternoon.
Yes.
I think that's what it is.
Agreed.
Clouds this afternoon, and your high today, 41 degrees. Appreciate you listening to Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So all of this is going on. Jim Acosta and Tim Burchett. And I think part of what's going on, of course, and we, again, talked about this yesterday, where this gives the media something to focus on. It's almost like what we're going to be having to deal with, Joan, is the media's outrage of the day. I mean, that's obviously what's going to happen.
It's the same thing that we experienced 4 years ago. Well, actually 8 years ago, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's 8 years ago from the day one of Trump's administration to the last day of his administration, and then all 4 years of Joe Biden, where it was all about Donald Trump.
Are you going to respond and say whether or not it is right to let these people out of jail?
I don't know if it is or not. I'm not a lawyer, but I'll tell you what isn't right.
You're a congressman. You're a member of Congress. You're an elected official. Take a stand.
They were not given due process. I told you if they crossed the line, they were trespassers. Should they rot in jail for the rest of their lives in the federal penitentiary
not trespassing,
and never be charged?
Beating police officer, tasing police officers.
So Burchett has a great point, of course, about rotting in jail, never being charged, no due process. And again, part of what is going on here is the media is going to use the cases of a couple of these guys, really bad guys, to criticize all of the pardons. Now, yesterday we spoke about this Dan Rodriguez, or DJ. He was part of a group, and he admits to doing this, of grabbing the taser of a cop and using it against that police officer. There were other charges, of course, as well, but, this guy was sentenced to 12 and a half years. The average time, I mentioned this yesterday, the average time a person spends in prison for assaulting a police officer is between 2 and 5 years. Now, he's already been in there for like 4. So when you look at the charges and when you look at what this guy did, and I'm not saying that it's okay that he tased a cop, clearly not, but everything has to be put in its proper context. Not every person in that group of 1,500 was out there tasing a police officer, but they're using that one case to tarnish all 1,500. So Acosta needs to be more concise in his questioning. Now, ask specifically, I would say, about Stuart Rhodes, the Oath Keepers leader who was convicted of plotting with his fellow Oath Keepers to disrupt the inauguration of Joe Biden. He never went inside. This Stuart Rhodes never went inside. But they say that he did direct things from the outside.
Your party has said time and again, we back the blue. It sounds like you let down the blue. You're betraying the blue.
Jim, why don't you just give an editorial and not let me come on?
I mean, the verbal onslaught was never ending.
Why not just say, you were wrong, Mr. President? Say it. Why can't you say it?
And then they trot out the ex-wife of the Oath Keepers leader, that Rose that I just talked about. The ex-wife, where she's talking about her concerns about her ex-husband and her safety.
I'm worried. I am worried. I also worry about his followers. They're a bit unhinged, and he does seem to be regathering and regrouping his army.
If any of them commit crimes in the future, should Donald Trump take personal responsibility for that?
So, number one, trotting out someone's ex-spouse is just a slimy thing to do. Most folks that have ex-spouses will understand that most ex-spouses don't have a lot of good things to say about a former spouse. But of course, this is CNN. But I love the question about whether or not Donald Trump should be held accountable if any of these guys commits crimes in the future. Okay. You want to talk about Biden and Harris and Mayorkas allowing all of those illegal aliens into our country? Are they going to be held personally accountable or personally responsible for what those gangbanger illegal aliens have done to the likes of, for example, Laken Riley? I mean, Burchett was being verbally attacked by, Jim Acosta. And I think that had he thought about it, that would have been a great question to ask Jim Acosta. But this whole interview is just a train wreck, leading to that epic moment that we started with.
This is not Fox, Congressman. You can't just spin a tail and pull the wool over people's eyes.
Yeah.
This is CNN. This is the news. We're asking you to come on and tell the truth.
And that's why more people are watching the Cartoon Network Spongebob reruns right now, Jim.
And by the way, we have some big news out of CNN coming up at right before the news at 5:30. I think I'll do that. Joan Jones has the news at 5:30. Joan, what's coming up?
Well, the identity of the Antioch High School shooter has been revealed, and also a manifesto that it appears he posted online. We've got those stories coming up at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTF.